what if your entire life isn't real? Like, what if it's all just a meticulously crafted story, complete with, unexpected plot twists and cliffhangers, all designed to draw you in? And what if the person living that story knows it's a story and is, well, maybe even shaping it? Today, we're taking a deep dive into a really remarkable collection of interviews. It's from the book Tin Tai Ben Thrai, Cain Ben Fei, which translates to Genius on the Left, Madman on the Right by Gao Ming. And this isn't just reading a book, it's more like a journey, a raw, unflinching journey into the minds of people whose perceptions of reality, they just defy conventional understanding. They really push the boundaries of what we label as sane.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mission today really is to explore these extraordinary frontiers, the frontiers of human perception and consciousness. We want to pull out some profound nuggets of insight, things that challenge our own, deeply ingrained assumptions about what's normal or what's real. We'll be looking at people who seem to live in entirely different worlds. And in doing that, we'll have to ask ourselves, where does genius actually end and madness begin? And is there even a clear line there at all, a fixed line?
Okay, let's start unpacking this maybe with the author themselves, our interviewer, because they waste absolutely no time setting a really provocative tone right from page 1. They just outright reject flowery introductions. They state that focusing on content is the most respectful way to treat readers. It's very direct.
It is. Very no nonsense, especially given the complexity of the subjects they're tackling.
And their own journey into writing this book is pretty striking, too. It apparently began at 2:30 a.m., August 17th, 2009. Just a sudden, almost mystical urge to type the first word. And they describe it not just as writing, but as the birth of a new universe, like this powerful welling up of deep memories and concepts that appeared before them, almost in 3 dimensions.
Wow.
Yeah. And this experience led to a really profound realization for them that language and writing are thought viruses, that they're capable of rewriting the brain's pathways.
That's a powerful concept right there, language as a virus.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If the very act of putting words down can literally rewire your brain, what does that say about our objective reality?
Exactly. That's the profound insight, right, from the author's own experience. Language isn't just a passive tool for describing reality. It's an active agent in constructing it. So if our understanding is often, as they say, limited and universally one-sided just by the way we communicate, well, maybe true objectivity is just an illusion. We're not merely interpreting the world. Our words are kind of editing and shaping our perceptions before we even consciously register them. It sets a fascinating stage, It really compels you to consider how much of your own perceived truth is just a product of the linguistic frameworks you happen to operate within.
Okay, so starting from that foundation, we leap into a truly mind-bending case. A patient whose very existence seems to defy logic. He was accused of attempting to murder his children, which is, horrific.
Unthinkable.
Right. Yet, he calmly claimed he merely made it look like he was trying to kill them.
Just made it look...
Yeah. And his justification, it's chilling. He said he needed to get sent to the hospital because, and this is his quote, "No reader likes to watch calm water forever. There needs to be a climax in his life story."
Wow. So he saw his life literally as a novel.
He genuinely perceived his life as a novel. And he, the author, was orchestrating its most dramatic turns, for a captivating plot.
Okay.
Now, for most of us, that sounds like a profound illusion, maybe a desperate coping mechanism for something terrible.
Sure, that's the immediate reaction.
But then there's the unsettling prophecy that came later. After he was released, the interviewer remembered a cryptic hint the patient had given, and they discovered words carved under the table from their very first meeting, "Nuenam Sal Rudi," which means leaving half a year later.
No way.
Yes. A chillingly accurate confirmation of the patient's strange foresight. This wasn't just some vague prediction. It was precise. It just blurs the lines completely between delusion and maybe a terrifying glimpse into a predetermined narrative.
A narrative he seemed to be not just living, but almost reading ahead of time.
Yeah.
That patient's worldview fundamentally challenges our understanding of free will, of personal agency. Is his novel just a way to cope, or does he genuinely perceive his life as pre-written? The existence of that carved note, that adds such an unsettling layer of proof.
It makes it hard to dismiss.
It really does. You can't just label it delusion and move on. And what's truly profound is the implication for us, for you listening. Are we all just characters in a story we can't quite read? Or are we genuinely shaping our own narrative? His unwavering conviction, even facing severe consequences. It suggests a reality where the internal story can become so powerful it actually seems to shape external events.
It forces you to question your own autonomy, doesn't it?
Definitely. How much are we really in control?
And if our waking lives can be like a narrative we read, what happens when that narrative spills directly out of our subconscious? Imagine a world where your deepest fears, your anxieties, they don't just haunt your sleep. They bleed into your waking hours, driving you into this constant state of crisis.
That sounds exhausting and terrifying.
It's the harrowing reality for the next person we meet. This woman lives in perpetual fear. She distrusts everyone, family, friends, doctors, and it all stems from these terrifying, hyper-realistic dreams that feel more real to her than her waking life.
So the dream world is almost more primary for her.
It seems that way. And in her dreams, there's this enigmatic figure, kind of vaguely formed, she calls Gao Ming, which translates to Mr. Shadow. This figure is the only other consistent character in her dreams, and strangely often saves her from danger.
A protector figure, but shadowy.
Exactly. But the most disturbing detail comes out when she's asked to describe Mr. Shadow's face. She gets intensely fearful and then recounts this horrifying truth. His features are constantly changing.
Changing how?
Reflecting the faces of many different people, shifting rapidly, all in the same face. It's not a fixed identity at all, but this fluid, terrifying composite.
Wow, that denies any kind of stable recognition. Must add to the fear.
Totally. It fuels her pervasive sense of distrust.
Yeah, that raises a huge question, doesn't it? How do we actually delineate between the real and the dreamed when someone's perception is so vividly, so consistently intertwined with their subconscious? That constantly shifting face of Mr. Shadow, it's like a powerful allegory almost, represents the elusive nature of identity itself, maybe, or perhaps a deep-seated, multifaceted trauma that just resists being pinned down to a single image.
That makes sense.
It really highlights the mind's incredible capacity to create and then reside within these intensely personal internal realities. It certainly compels you to question the stability of your own perceived world. Her experience just vividly shows how these internal landscapes can completely fragment someone's connection to any kind of objective reality.
Okay, this next story. It starts quite innocently, with the children's tale of the three little pigs. But it quickly goes somewhere much, much deeper, into the complexities of human identity and the mind's response to unimaginable trauma. We first kind of glimpse this through a young girl. She's joyously recounting a story told by her non-existent brother.
Non-existent brother. Okay.
Yeah, and that seemingly innocent detail hints at an alternate personality. Probably a coping mechanism for some early trauma.
Right. The mind finding a way to cope.
Exactly. But then we pivot to an even more harrowing case, a male patient diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, or DD. And he confesses, quite calmly, to killing one of his personalities.
Killing a personality? How does that even work?
Well, his motivation wasn't to avoid legal trouble or anything like that. It was for a deeper, intensely personal reason. Something about achieving a form of internal unity.
Unity through elimination.
It seems so. He reveals there were actually three personalities at one point. There was the original lonely child who was traumatized by his father's drunken death and relentless bullying. Then came the brother. That's the personality who was the current patient created to cope with that trauma. And later, a third personality emerged, an innocent one, a sister. Because the brother personality felt he couldn't fulfill a vow he'd made to be a good parent someday. So the monster he killed. It was likely an aspect of his own trauma or suffering. A part he felt he had to eliminate to find some kind of painful internal peace.
He talks about it with tears, doesn't he? Shows the depth of that internal battle.
Yes, exactly. It's clearly not something taken lightly.
What's truly fascinating here, though, is the sheer resilience. The desperate creativity of the human psyche when faced with overwhelming pain, creating distinct personalities, each with its own history, its own purpose. It becomes this profound survival mechanism.
Yeah.
And the idea of one personality killing another, not out of malice, but for this deeply personal, almost philosophical unification, or to get rid of a monster. It just challenges our simplistic notions of mental illness. For him, this isn't a crime in the way we understand it. It's a tragic internal act of self-preservation. Or maybe a desperate quest for wholeness. The layers here, they compel you to consider the incredible lengths the mind will go to survive unbearable circumstances, and how sanity itself can be such a fragile, maybe even subjective construct when you're confronted with that kind of internal complexity.
It really makes you rethink the boundaries.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if the mind can create these incredibly complex internal realities, what about realities that seem to exist, well, beyond our normal understanding? Imagine perceiving the world not just in the 3 dimensions we're all used to, but in 4. I mean, it's a concept I can barely wrap my head around.
Right, it's abstract for most of us.
Yet we meet a 17-year-old who makes this astonishing claim. And his insights are apparently so profound they even intrigue a quantum physics professor. He's described as having this rare calmness for his age, almost a dismissive air sometimes. But his eyes apparently betray this deep longing to connect, to be understood.
Interesting contrast.
Yeah. So this boy, he asserts he can control a pen remotely using only his will, like data transmission. Or, as he puts it, sending a 3-dimensional object to another person in a distant place.
Okay.
And he claims to perceive a 4-dimensional absolute creature, something that exists beyond our current understanding. His conviction apparently unnerved the interviewer, but totally fascinated this leading quantum physicist.
And the physicist confirmed similar research.
Yeah, that's the surprising validation. The professor confirmed that top research centers are actively studying similar concepts in quantum mechanics, but they couldn't explain how this boy would know about it.
That's the kicker. How does he know?
Exactly. And the boy's analogy to make his point is really powerful. He compares his advanced perception to showing a 19th century physicist a smartphone.
Okay, I see where he's going.
Right. It seems mad to the 19th century mind, but it's simply beyond their current scientific framework. He says, to that physicist, the idea of talking to someone miles away without wires would be deemed insane, just like his 4-dimensional perception might seem to us now.
That's a brilliant analogy. It completely disarms skepticism by putting our current limitations into historical perspective.
Yeah.
And this really challenges how much of our perceived reality is just inherently limited by our current sensory tools, our conceptual frameworks. This young man's analogy is incredibly potent. What we might immediately dismiss as impossible or mad today, it could simply be a reality operating on principles we haven't grasped yet, much like the paradoxes of quantum mechanics itself.
Right.
He's highlighting that our 3-dimensional bias might be severely limiting our understanding of the true universe. It strongly encourages you, the listener, to think critically about the boundaries of science and the potential for human perception to maybe extend far beyond our current models.
Could there be more to reality that we're just not equipped to see?
And are we too quick to label what we don't understand as madness? That's the underlying question.
Okay, so from 4 dimensions, we now leap to an even more mind-bending concept: the end of time. This is described by an old man in a hospital who's affectionately known as the hospital treasure. His profound insights apparently captivate everyone he meets. He's been there over a decade.
A hospital treasure? That's quite a title.
Apparently his views are so intriguing they can even infect other patients, causing them to become agitated or suddenly deeply philosophical.
Wow, a philosophical contagion.
Kind of. So the old man's theory is that the end of time exists at a balance point formed by bent gravity.
Bent gravity, okay, that sounds unusual.
The interviewer found it nonsensical at first too, but the old man meticulously builds his case, drawing on complex astrophysical phenomena. He connects it to how massive black holes can tear space. And if space doesn't tear, a wormhole is formed by a deep indentation. Ideas that even the scientific community grapples with.
So he's using concepts from physics.
Exactly. And he elaborates with this inertia of gravity concept, like how Saturn's rings are formed by the lingering gravitational field of a shattered moon.
Okay.
He argues that space bent by a massive object would continue to be bent for a while, even if the object suddenly disappeared, creating a temporary warp where time could behave differently.
A gravitational echo, almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And the experience of this end of time, he describes it as a place with no time, no cause and effect.
No cause and effect. How does that work?
He says taking one step forward means simultaneously stepping in all directions. You can fill all space while remaining at a single point. It's an existence beyond linear comprehension. He says if you simply desire to go somewhere, you're already there, because the constraints of process and sequence are gone. It's a realm where all processes are no processes.
Okay, that is truly mind-bending. What's remarkable is how he weaves these complex physics concepts, gravity, black holes, wormholes, inertia, with this deeply personal, almost mystical experience of time and space.
It's an unusual blend.
Absolutely. His description of existing beyond cause and effect, where desire is instantly fulfilled because there's no before or after, that directly challenges linear causality, which is a cornerstone of our understanding. He's essentially saying our perception of time as a linear progression might just be a function of our current dimensional existence, not an absolute truth.
So time might not be what we think it is.
Exactly. It makes you question if our sequential experience is just local, a feature of our dimension. He reminds us that the fundamental nature of reality might be far more alien than we can even imagine, maybe beyond the scope of even advanced physics.
And the insights come from the hospital treasure.
Sometimes the most profound insights do come from the most unexpected sources.
Okay, our next encounter pushes the boundaries of identity itself. We meet a tragic voyager who claims he's from a parallel universe.
The parallel universe, okay.
Yeah, one existing a month slower than ours. And his very presence here is this profound existential dilemma for him. He speaks with an unsettling calm, though, despite the story.
A slow universe. How does he explain that?
His theory is that many universes exist simultaneously, some slower, some faster in time relative to others. And he describes using Wheeler's quantum foam as a pathway between them.
Quantum foam, like tiny fluctuations in space-time.
Kind of. Think of it less like literal foam and more like the fabric of space-time being incredibly turbulent and porous at tiny scales, maybe offering shortcuts. And his method of travel is just as mind-bending. His mind's information, his consciousness, memories, everything is compressed into a long electronic signal based on his brainwaves.
Compressed information, not physical travel.
Exactly. It's transmitted through this quantum foam. He says this technology developed in his universe uses anti-gravity engines and subatomic particle manipulation. It's data transfer, not physical transport.
Okay, the text sounds sci-fi, but what's the personal implication? The tragedy.
That's the devastating part. He is not his original self. The original him is still back in his own universe.
So
He's a copy. A signal transmitter, as he calls it. His current existence is solely for the purpose of data transfer. He recounts this with deep sadness, explaining his memories are just copies, and he can't return to being the original.
That's horrifying.
It leads to his profound suffering. He can't erase these copied memories, can't change his situation. He feels like just a part or an accessory trapped in this copied existence. His life's meaning reduced to a function. He finds it a great punishment.
Wow. This tragic Voyager story just brings that whole philosophical debate about consciousness and identity right to the forefront, especially in an age of advancing tech.
Yeah, what is the self?
Exactly. If a person's entire being can be reduced to data and transmitted, what truly constitutes the self? Is it the original biological body, the transmitted information, or the subjective experience of the copy? His struggle with being just a signal transmitter, not a complete autonomous individual. It's such a poignant exploration of what it means to be human and the potential ethical nightmares of future science.
It really makes you think.
It begs you to consider the fragility of your own identity. What makes you, you? Is it your physical form, your memories, or something else entirely, something that maybe can't be copied or transmitted?
Okay, if selfhood itself can be so fluid, what about our very perception of the world around us? What if the world you perceive is fundamentally visually different from everyone else's? We met a young woman who, under certain conditions, literally sees people as animals.
Sees them as animals. How does that work?
And her observations, they reveal some startling truths about our own reality. She's described as cheerful, openly curious, a 19-year-old. Not what you might expect.
So not withdrawn or fearful because of it?
Apparently not. She details her unique vision. When she looks blurred, and this is the specific state of vision she can control, not a medical condition people transform into animals. She saw the interviewer as a spider weaving a web when he was just arranging his notes.
Wow, specific.
Very. Her mother is a cat, her father is a large ocean fish, and she identifies herself as a mole. And this isn't just imagination, it's how she genuinely perceives them in that state.
That's fascinating. And what about her observations about our reality?
Yeah, this is interesting. She points out the absurdity, the comical yet deeply unsettling absurdity of the imagery on packaged meat in supermarkets.
Oh, how so?
You know, the cartoons.
Yeah.
Animals cheerfully holding up their own processed body parts. A cow presenting beef jerky. A duck holding its own neck.
Huh. I never really thought about it that way.
Right. She asks why no one else finds this terrifying or strange. It's a really sharp observation.
It is. It highlights how we normalize things. What's fascinating here is the subjective and often arbitrary nature of perception. This patient doesn't just imagine these transformations, she sees them. Her blurred vision seems to tap into something deeper, maybe archetypal or instinctual interpretations.
Like the spider weaving a web for the interviewer thinking.
Exactly. It suggests a hyper-awareness of subtle, nonverbal cues, maybe related to intellectual activity. And that packaged meat anecdote, it brilliantly highlights how humans normalize and compartmentalize uncomfortable realities, violence even. It contrasts so sharply with her more maybe innocent or animalistic perception that sees the inherent absurdity.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much our own normal vision filters out. Are we missing crucial, perhaps absurd aspects of our daily existence simply because we've grown accustomed to them?
That's a good question. What are we not seeing? Okay, so in our modern world, we're just constantly bombarded with information, right?
Yep.
Nonstop.
Information overload is definitely a thing.
But what if the path to truly feeling, to raw sensation, lies in stripping all that away? One man undertook a pretty radical experiment to discover pure sensation. He's described as very talkative, actually, which is kind of ironic given his goal.
Isolation to find sensation. Tell me more.
He describes his extreme isolation. He purposefully shut himself off for days. No media, no social interaction, minimal food, just steamed buns and water. He even cut the electricity by flipping the main circuit breaker.
Wow, total disconnect.
Yeah, the aim was to sever all ties with modern civilization. And the profound sensory experience began after about 48 hours. He started to experience sensation itself, like a raw, direct awareness. He described it as tentacles, exploring new people and things.
Tentacle?
Yeah, like this pure, unmediated way of perceiving, not a specific sensation, but the existence of sensation, which he felt had been previously dulled by all the constant input.
So removing the noise allowed the signal to come through.
Pretty much. He even had vivid, phantom tastes of foods he intensely craved, like corn and Coke, which shows how the mind can create sensory reality when deprived.
That raises a really important question, doesn't it? What is the cost of constant stimulation and information overload on our ability to truly feel, to experience the world directly? This man's extreme experiment suggests that our default state in modern society might actually be a kind of sensory numbness, a thick fog of information that just obscures raw perception.
That's a bit bleak.
Maybe. But his description of sensation as tentacles offers this vivid, almost primal understanding of how we interact with the world before our conscious mind layers on all the judgment and preconceived notions. It challenges you to ask, are you truly experiencing the world, or are you just processing a filtered version of it? What might you discover if you really unplugged from the constant deluge of data, if you created a void for pure sensation to emerge?
Something to think about. Are humans still evolving? Our next interviewee, a woman with a super evolution theory, certainly thinks so, but maybe not in the way you'd expect.
Okay, super evolution. I'm intrigued.
She's described as incredibly knowledgeable and quite pleased to share her insights. So her theory starts with fetal development. She posits that humans basically recap our evolutionary history in the womb. Starting as single-cell organisms, then fish-like, reptile-like, mammal-like with tails, finally achieving human form as tails and body hair disappear.
The old ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny idea, essentially.
Right. Then she brings in the Red Queen effect, that biological principle where species have to constantly evolve just to maintain their existing position, like Alice in Wonderland running as fast as she can just to stay in the same place.
Always adapting just to keep up. Applies to us too, she argues.
Yes. But then comes her core concept. Human superevolution. She argues that humanity is in this unique stage where we create our own environment now.
Ah, so evolution driven by culture and technology, not just nature.
Exactly. And this, she says, leads to the degeneration of certain physical traits like nails and fangs, which are no longer crucial for survival in our self-made world. But simultaneously, it enhances our social and cognitive capacities.
So we're losing physical wild traits, but gaining mental and social complexity.
That's the idea. And she playfully dismisses any suggestion that this is like social Darwinism or fascist ideology. She insists she's merely observing the process.
Interesting distinction. What's fascinating here is that blending of biological evolution with a social and cultural lens. The idea that human evolution is now driven by the environment we create, that's a powerful insight.
It changes the game.
It really does. While our physical traits might degenerate in a purely wild context, our minds and societies become increasingly complex. This leads to different forms of fitness. It forces you to reconsider what progress and evolution truly means, and how our definition of survival of the fittest is constantly shifting within the self-made world we inhabit.
Are we evolving towards a more social, intellectual being at the cost of our primal physical attributes?
That's the question her theory raises. It asks us to look at ourselves not just as products of nature, but as active architects of our own evolutionary trajectory.
From theories of human evolution, let's shift to the mysteries of a lost civilization that still holds immense power over our imagination. The Maya.
The Maya. Always fascinating.
Our next expert shows us how to reconstruct their world, and his insights really challenge conventional historical narratives. This man, he's a self-taught enthusiast who spent years meticulously studying Maya culture. He's deciphering texts, sculptures, astronomical records. He knows how Maya writing is both text and art, seamless and intuitive for its native users.
The integration is incredible.
Yeah. And he highlights the Maya paradox, this incredible contrast between their incredibly advanced astronomy, base 20 math, precise calendars, a whole priestly class observing the stars.
Their grasp of celestial mechanics was astonishing.
Right. Juxtaposed with relatively primitive metalwork, no wheeled vehicles despite having developed road networks, and this heavy emphasis on human sacrifice. These contradictions, he argues, are what make the civilization so captivating.
They defy easy categorization.
Totally. And he offers a radical reinterpretation of sacrifice. He argues it wasn't just barbaric, but a profound honor for the nobility. It involved self-mutilation, cutting tongues, piercing arms to offer blood, not just capturing prisoners.
So, a deeply religious act for the elite.
Yes, acts to seek divine guidance, reserved for the elite, not commoners or slaves. A sign of reverence and privilege in their worldview.
That changes the perception significantly.
And he also tackles that famous sculpture often interpreted as a Maya rocket or spaceship. You've probably seen it.
Pakal's tomb lid, yeah.
According to him and other scholars, it's actually King Kinichjana Pakal's soul ascending to the heavens after death. The launcher is his stone coffin and tomb, with all the decorative elements symbolizing solemnity. It's an artistic representation of the soul's journey, not a technological blueprint.
Debunking the ancient aliens theory there.
Pretty much. His philosophy is clear. Focus on what can be definitively known before you start speculating about the magical. Understand the verifiable first.
A solid approach. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Maya civilization, as reinterpreted by this passionate researcher, serves as such a potent reminder of the dangers of applying our modern biases to past cultures.
We judge them by our standards.
Exactly. His meticulous work, combining archaeology with cultural empathy, reveals that what we might perceive as primitive or savage could, in its own context, be profoundly complex and meaningful. It pushes you to question what progress truly entails and how much we really understand about these lost worlds that once thrived. His approach encourages us to move beyond superficial judgments, to try and immerse ourselves in the logic and values of a different time and place.
For a more nuanced understanding.
Precisely. A more respectful understanding of history.
Okay, not all these journeys are of exhilarating discovery. Some delve into really desolate landscapes of profound loneliness. This is a haunting reality, experienced by one man trapped in a recurring, hyper-realistic dream that just bleeds into his waking life. He has a wife, a child, a seemingly happy life, but this dream just overshadows everything.
A dream that powerful. What's it like?
He describes the setting. He's the sole survivor on this icy, desolate planet. He finds himself in a structure high above a vast ocean filled with floating icebergs. Beneath the icebergs lies an empty pyramid.
Desolate. Alone.
Yeah, completely. There's no other movement, no other living thing.
Right.
And his actions in the dream are very methodical, very repetitive. He adjusts machine parameters in a large room, finds a small square box, winds it like a clock, and watches it inflate into a balloon that just floats away.
Strange, specific tasks.
Yeah. But the overwhelming emotion is this profound, soul-crushing loneliness. And it's so real, it permeates his waking life, even though he has a loving family.
So the feeling lingers even when he's awake and surrounded by people.
Exactly. He yearns for any companionship. He says he'd be willing to give up everything, even to endure a terrifying nightmare, just to escape this pervasive emptiness.
Wow. That says a lot about the depth of the feeling. It raises an important question about the psychological impact of perceived isolation, even if it's only a dream.
The mind makes it real.
Absolutely. The sheer vividness of this man's dream, to the point where it overshadows his entire waking existence, it just demonstrates the mind's profound capacity to create these overwhelming emotional realities. It highlights that deep, fundamental human need for connection and the devastating effect of its perceived absence.
Yeah.
The fact that he'd prefer a terrifying nightmare to this pervasive existential loneliness, it speaks volumes about the nature of human suffering. It really asks you to reflect on what anchors your own sense of belonging. How vital is connection to maintaining your mental well-being, even when outwardly everything looks fine?
Okay, from that internal desolation, let's turn to something perhaps more insidious, maybe involving others.
Yeah.
What if there are people moving among us, subtly, imperceptibly, who literally steal your time, accelerating your aging process without you ever realizing it?
Steal time, like literally age you faster. That's a chilling idea.
It's the reality described by one of our interviewees. She's described as quiet, cautious, her demeanor kind of mirroring the elusive nature of these thieves she talks about.
Okay, so how does she know? How does she identify them?
She details this unique ability. She can identify these time thieves by a very specific physical marker, 4 horizontal lines on their hands.
4 lines on the hands. That's specific.
Yes. And there's an accompanying unsettling feeling she gets. It's not just a vague intuition, it's a precise visual cue plus a feeling.
And how do these thieves operate?
Their cunning is central to her account. She says they're incredibly devious, never taking too much time from any single person. Instead, they snatch a few years here, a few years there, from different individuals.
Spreading it out so it's not obvious.
Exactly. This makes it almost impossible for victims to notice. As she puts it, 1 year, they age several years, but without an obvious cause. People just attribute it to stress or normal aging.
Yeah, insidious is the right word. It raises the question, how do we categorize or understand such specific shared delusions? Or maybe alternative realities that manifest in such a precise way?
Right. It's so specific.
The time thieves concept, it taps into a deep human fear, doesn't it? Lost time, premature aging, those unseen forces that might manipulate our lives. It's a fascinating narrative that externalizes an internal anxiety about mortality and control over one's own life. It gives a concrete, though fantastical, form to these abstract fears.
Yeah.
And the consistency of her observations, even across different people she identifies, and that specific physical marker, it makes her delusion remarkably coherent. It really compels you to consider the strength of conviction in these deeply held idiosyncratic beliefs.
Imagine a world where the full moon doesn't just pull at the tides, but the very fabric of human flesh, turning people into grotesque, unrecognizable monsters.
Okay, now we're into werewolf territory almost.
That's the terrifying, visceral reality for our next interviewee, a man who describes these transformations with this chilling yet calm certainty.
Calm certainty, that's unnerving. What does he see?
His claim is that on moonlit nights, especially full moons, people he sees physically transform. He describes how the parts of the body exposed to moonlight swell dramatically, grotesquely, like half a face might become monstrous, while the other half remains human, before the entire body transforms into this very special, unidentifiable shape. Not human, not animal, just monster.
Wow. Specific triggers, specific transformations.
Yes. And despite their horrifying appearance and their apparent desire to eat his brain,
Eat his brain, okay.
he always senses they're a little afraid of him. He believes their energy is not enough yet, suggesting some kind of power dynamic or maybe a form of self-preservation where his own perceived strength protects him.
That adds another layer of complexity. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this account, while fantastical, could be interpreted as a vivid manifestation of a deep-seated fear. Fear of the unknown, maybe, the monstrous within humanity itself, or even profound dissociative experience.
The moon as a trigger is classic folklore, tapping into those primal anxieties.
Exactly. Transformation, loss of control. And the detail about the monsters wanting to eat his brain, while also fearing him, it suggests a complex internal dynamic. Perhaps a projection of his own perceived power or vulnerability in the face of such terror. It's a potent illustration of how the mind can construct an external reality based on profound internal conflicts. What underlying anxieties might manifest as such vivid, terrifying transformations? And how, in its most extreme states, can the mind just re-sculpt the perceived reality of the human form itself?
We often associate stealing bodies with the darkest forms of evil, right? Grave robbing, Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's a classic horror trope.
But for one man, it was apparently an act of profound, desperate love, pushing the boundaries of science, ethics, human emotion,
Yeah.
everything. This patient, he's a mechanical device engineer, and he exudes this shocking calm for someone accused of such a heinous crime.
Stealing bodies out of love. How?
His crime and motive are deeply unsettling. He was arrested for stealing corpses, yes, but his true, almost unbelievable motive was to resurrect his deceased girlfriend.
Resurrect her.
Yes. He describes this 12-year deep love for her, a bond that began in college and never wavered. His audacious method involved a combination of organic chemistry, preparing petri dishes, and mechanical devices, all driven by this fervent hope for her to live again in any form, just to be with him.
That's incredibly extreme and deeply tragic.
Beyond his personal tragedy, he offers this unique critique of evil. He argues that people aren't inherently bad, but are shaped by circumstances. And he posits that Western power was built on plunder, a kind of societal critique mixed in.
So personal grief mixed with broader philosophical ideas.
Yeah, and modern life for him is a capsule state or a beehive. He describes contemporary society as this uniform capsule state where people live in confined spaces, conforming to templates, doing the same activities, like a beehive. Those who don't conform are seen as strange. It shows this profound disillusionment with societal norms.
A critique of conformity.
And startlingly, he even admits to a tendency toward aggressive stripping behavior that he struggles to control. A really jarring admission of his own darker impulses, even while he's philosophizing.
Wow. Okay. What's fascinating here is the complex interplay of intense personal grief, radical scientific ambition, and this sweeping critique of society.
There's a lot to unpack.
Definitely. This man's attempt at resurrection, however twisted it appears from the outside, is driven by this powerful, albeit desperate form of love. And his philosophical digressions from the nature of evil to the capsule state of modern life, they show a mind grappling with fundamental questions about morality, identity, societal structures, even while engaged in deeply unconventional and illegal acts.
Yeah.
It forces you to confront the boundaries of ethics when driven by profound emotion and this unique, unsettling worldview. His story compels you to consider not just the depths of human despair, but also the intellectual framework some individuals build to justify actions that others find utterly reprehensible.
What if true vitality lies not in conformity, but in radical self-expression, even if it means challenging every sacred cow of society?
Okay, like pushing boundaries to feel alive.
Exactly. We met a friend of the author who sought stimulation in the most outrageous and frankly thought-provoking ways. She's described as unfiltered, unapologetic, and incredibly invigorating to talk to.
What kind of stimulation are we talking about?
She shares this wish list of outrageous acts, deeply transgressive desires, like defecating in iconic landmarks, the Eiffel Tower, the Statue of Liberty's torch, inside the Sphinx at the North Pole.
Okay. That's certainly outrageous. Why? What's the philosophy?
Your core philosophy isn't about art or simply breaking rules for the sake of it. It's about pure, unadulterated stimulation. She explicitly states she doesn't care what others think and would scold anyone who labels her acts as art.
So it's the act itself, the transgression, that provides the stimulation.
Precisely. And she offers this radical reinterpretation of the forbidden fruit story from the Garden of Eden.
Oh, how does she see it?
She argues it wasn't about knowledge being a burden. It was about dukphang. It was a Vietnamese term for profound desire, deep craving being the true burden. Knowledge, she believes, only fuels more desire, making our pursuit of it less pure. Adam and Eve, she thinks, would have eaten the fruit anyway, regardless of the snake, driven by their own curiosity and desire.
Desire as the prime mover, not knowledge. Interesting take.
Yeah. And she challenges social rituals, too. She provocatively describes weddings as basically public declarations that two people will make love tonight, finding that public acknowledgement intensely stimulating.
Turning a sacred ritual into something raw and primal.
Right. She even suggests if public defecation were a coming-of-age ritual, there'd be open latrines at the base of the Eiffel Tower today, just highlighting the arbitrary nature of social norms.
That's a very vivid way to make a point about social construct.
During their conversation, she smokes openly, challenging polite norms. She declares her preference for new worlds over familiar ones, and the interviewer admits feeling like he might be driven mad by her perspective, but ultimately feels invigorated and refreshed by her radical challenge to normalcy.
This raises a really important question. What is the true nature of human desire? And how does it intersect with or defy societal constructs? This individual's radical pursuit of stimulation. It can be seen as this deeply rebellious act against perceived conformity, hypocrisy, the loss of raw experience in modern life.
Rejection of the mundane.
Exactly. By reinterpreting foundational myths like the forbidden fruit, she highlights the driving force of desire as a primary mover, a fundamental aspect of human nature that society often tries to tame or deny. Her provocative examples brilliantly expose the arbitrary nature of many social norms, forcing you to question why some behaviors are celebrated while others, equally primal, are condemned. She offers a lens through which to view society's unspoken rules, revealing them as less about inherent right or wrong and more about collective agreement and maybe a fear of the wild, untamed self. It's a raw, unapologetic assertion of individual will.
Okay, if the self can be shaped by narratives and desires, what happens when we question its very foundation? Like, if your cells are constantly changing, are you truly the same you over time?
The classic ship of Theseus problem applied to the self.
Exactly, and this profound, unsettling question forms a core of an interaction with one interviewee whose insights just unravel the very fabric of personal identity. He's initially described as agitated, showing severe anxiety and insomnia, particularly around women, which made him wary of the interviewer.
Understandable caution, perhaps. What's his argument?
His core argument is that since nearly all cells in our body are replaced over time, except maybe some neurons, we are not the same physical entity we were even a few years ago. He argues vehemently against the idea of a consistent physical self. He says, you think you are you, but in fact you are no longer you.
Okay, challenging physical continuity.
Right. Then he argues that our sense of identity is just strung together by memory. But memory itself is unreliable. He gives the example of remembering your childhood home as tall until you revisit it as an adult and realize it's actually small. Memory impressions aren't constantly updated.
So unreliable memory on top of changing physical form.
Exactly. Given this constant cellular change and unreliable memory, he concludes that self-consciousness is an illusion, merely an attachment or a boring feedback. He calls it a chaotic entity.
An illusion. Wow.
And it delivers this really unsettling conclusion. You are not you, I am not I, we are you.
We are you. What does that mean?
He states that our consciousness is ultimately dependent on external context. Our environment, our name, family, friends, everything familiar for its very existence and meaning. Without these anchors, memory and consciousness would just disintegrate and collapse, leaving us without any sense of self.
So the self isn't internal, it's relational, defined by context.
That seems to be his point. And this philosophical deconstruction clearly takes a toll on him. He ends up described in a fetal position, expressing profound confusion and existential anguish, asking, who am I? What is my purpose? What is my value of existence?
That's heartbreaking. His perspective is this deep, unsettling dive into the philosophical problem of personal identity over time. By deconstructing the physical basis of the self and rigorously questioning memory's reliability, he arrives at this profoundly unsettling conclusion. Our self is largely an illusion, a fluid construct dependent on external anchors.
It's more than just mental illness, it's radical philosophy.
Exactly. It's a radical existential inquiry that challenges the very foundation of individual existence and connection. It compels you to ask, where does the I truly reside, and how much of it is truly yours? His anguish isn't just a symptom, it's a testament to the human struggle with these fundamental questions about being, purpose, and the stability of what we assume is our most constant possession, ourselves.
Okay, if identity itself can be an illusion, what about the very fabric of reality? Prepare for a worldview that dismisses most cutting-edge scientific theories as children playing in mud.
Oh, dismisses string theory and multiverses.
Yeah, and fundamentally redefines reality, consciousness, even the existence of a spiritual realm. This is the Stone World Woman, and she challenges everything you thought you knew. She's described as sitting serenely, almost detached, her gaze fixed on something beyond the present, initially not even acknowledging the interviewer.
The Stone World Woman. Intriguing name. What's her critique of science?
She critiques theories like the multiverse, string theory, the holographic principle. She sees them as biased because they're still constrained by conventional human concepts, separate space and time, linear causality.
So limited by our ingrained assumptions.
Exactly. She finds them superficial and lacking in fun because they don't explain all phenomena. She argues they're just attempts to explain specific observations, not the entirety of existence.
So what's her alternative?
Her core assertion is radical. Time and space are not two different things, but one entity. She believes our separation of these concepts is just a human construct, an artificial dissection of a unified reality. and causality. That's just a narrow positioning concept that will eventually be discarded.
Time and space are one. Causality is temporary.
Okay. How does she picture this?
She uses this jelly metaphor. She says, if forced to use quantitative units, all universes, all causality, all up, down, left, right, front, back, all you, me, others are all one, like a giant piece of jelly without any distinction.
Everything is one unified jelly. That implies determinism, predetermination.
It sounds like it. But then she adds another layer. Within this giant jelly, she says there are many, many tiny bubbles that are not material.
Bubbles in the jelly, what are they?
These bubbles, she suggests, are where change and individual choice might exist, because they're not constrained by the material jelly.
So pockets of non-material freedom within the determined whole. Maybe. And she proposes the end of matter. She argues we're not seeking the boundary of the universe, but the boundary of matter itself. When we find the boundary of the universe, we will find the end of matter.
The edge of the material world and what's beyond.
That end of matter is a spiritual world existing in non-existence. A place that surpasses material limits and exists in non-existence. It's a realm where the mind isn't constrained by the body, an absolute freedom.
Existing in non-existence, that's paradoxical.
Very. She uses an analogy. If a tiny bubble is constrained within the jelly, its shape is determined by the surrounding jelly. But if the bubble moves, its shape changes. If it completely leaves the jelly, it enters a new domain where previous concepts no longer apply.
What a fascinating, radical departure from conventional scientific and philosophical thought. Her jelly and bubble metaphors offer this profound, almost terrifyingly deterministic view of reality.
The jelly part, yeah.
Yet simultaneously introduces this glimmer of agency and freedom within the bubbles. Her assertion that time and space are one and causality is outdated, it challenges the very bedrock of our understanding. Predicts these concepts will be overturned. And the idea of a spiritual world existing in non-existence, it pushes beyond dualism, suggests a realm where our current material-bound perceptions simply cease to apply.
Yeah.
It's a complete, startling reimagining of the universe that makes you question the very nature of what you consider real or tangible. She's asking us not just to think outside the box, but to question the very dimensions of the box itself.
Okay, from these grand cosmological theories, let's transition to ancient living traditions that coexist, sometimes uneasily, with the modern world. Our next encounter is with the shaman, a man who carries the profound, often macabre weight of his ancestors' will. He's actually a factory engineer by day.
Engineer and shaman, that's quite a combination.
Right. Introduce Mr. Kwai. His name apparently sounds like strange or ghost in Vietnamese. He just laughs when asked if his name is real, tells the interviewer to check official records.
A bit mysterious.
He reveals this ancestral curse, as he calls it. His family line is uniquely structured. Every generation has only single children. This ensures the direct, uninterrupted inheritance of shamanic knowledge.
Wow, generations of single children to preserve the line. That's intense.
It is. And he defends some disturbing ancestral practices, like keeping ancestral skulls for divination and using human skin from deceased relatives who consented as ceremonial paper.
Okay, that's definitely macabre from a modern perspective.
He states the police have verified these practices and wills confirm the consent. He sees no need for further explanation to outsiders.
So deeply traditional and not seeking external validation.
Exactly. His non-proselytizing stance is very clear. He views shamanism as a heavy burden, a responsibility to the ancestors' will, not a hobby, not something to be spread widely. He explicitly refuses to teach others, fearing its misuse or commercialization, says it's forbidden to develop it widely.
Protecting the tradition.
Yeah. And crucially, he sees absolutely no conflict between his shamanic reverence for heaven, earth, water, fire, wind, thunder, and his academic knowledge of modern physics, mechanics, organic chemistry from his engineering background.
He integrates both worldviews.
He doesn't believe they're in conflict at all. Yeah. He sees them as different, yet equally valid ways of understanding the universe.
What's truly fascinating here is that profound ability to hold seemingly contradictory belief systems, ancient spiritual practices, and modern rational thought without experiencing conflict.
Yeah, most people would struggle with that.
The shaman's story beautifully illustrates the concept of inherited or lived knowledge, which is distinct from academic learning. His macabre rituals, while shocking to our modern sensibilities, are presented as sacred duties rooted in this deep respect for ancestral will. It challenges our ethnocentric views of tradition, forces us to question our own definitions of normal or acceptable. It compels you to consider that truth can manifest in many forms, and that a deep personal understanding doesn't always need external validation or widespread acceptance. His life serves as this living bridge between worlds, showing how different forms of knowledge can coexist, not in opposition, but maybe in a complementary understanding of a complex reality.
Okay, let's pivot now to a more clinical perspective, but one that's still profoundly philosophical. We spoke with a renowned neuroscientist whose views on mental illness are so radical they challenge the very definition of normalcy itself. He's highly respected in his field.
A neuroscientist challenging normalcy. Okay, let's hear it.
His epiphany moment happened while studying medicine abroad. He observed two mental patients conversing in a hospital courtyard. One spoke Spanish, the other English.
And they understood each other.
Well, their conversations were complete non sequiturs, like the weather is beautiful today, met with, I don't like onions, absolutely no connection.
Okay.
Yet they appeared to be having this deeply engaged, meaningful interaction, nodding, gesturing, as if they perfectly understood each other. This experience made him question the very nature of communication and reality.
How can meaning exist without shared logic? Interesting.
And his radical view, developed over time, is this. Everyone has a mental illness.
Everyone. That's a bold claim.
He illustrates it with common obsessive compulsions, like needing your desktop icons under 3, or meticulously organizing money by denomination, or needing perfectly smooth bed sheets. These are, in his view, just points on a spectrum of fixations. No different in kind from more severe manifestations, only in degree.
So it's all a spectrum, from minor quirks to major illnesses?
That's his perspective. And his treatment philosophy follows logically from that. He believes that if a mental patient is happy, poses no threat to themselves or others, and isn't a burden on family or society, then there's no inherent need to cure them.
Questioning the goal of normalization.
Exactly. He acknowledges such ideal cases are rare, but he fundamentally questions the ethical imperative to normalize someone who is content in their own unique reality. He also emphasizes the challenges in diagnosis, noting the underlying causes of many illnesses remain unknown.
What's truly fascinating here is the neuroscientist's profound redefinition of mental illness, moving it from a clear pathology to a universal human condition on a spectrum of fixations.
It makes it less us versus them.
Precisely. His anecdote about the two patients highlights the subjective nature of communication, the internal consistency of seemingly nonsensical conversations. It shows that meaning can exist even without shared external logic. And his everyone has a mental illness paradigm forces us to reconsider who defines normalcy and how we judge others. It's a powerful invitation for you, the listener, to introspect.
What are my fixations?
Exactly. What fixations define your own sense of order? And are they truly normal, or simply your own unique brand of madness? He suggests our attempts to categorize and cure are often limited by our own biases and incomplete understanding.
Imagine dedicating your life to understanding and treating mental illness, only to find yourself, agreeing with your patient's delusions.
Agreeing with them. That would be professionally challenging, to say the least.
That's the extraordinary journey of former psychiatrist we spoke with. She eventually left her profession for deeply personal reasons. She recounts this with a knowing, almost mischievous smile, apparently.
Why did she leave? What happened?
Her reason was profound. She discovered she could not only understand, but also deeply agree with and even endorse some of her patients' worldviews.
Wow.
This caused her to question her own sanity, her position as a healer. She felt herself being pulled into the story, becoming a participant rather than an objective observer.
Losing that critical distance.
Yeah. She eventually came to terms with her own unusual nature, choosing to embrace it. She found her joy not in work, but in the new worlds she discovers through these interactions, asserting her right to choose her own preferences, much like that challenging friend we discussed earlier.
That raises a really important question about the line between therapeutic empathy and personal identification in a professional context.
It's a fine line.
Absolutely. This former psychiatrist's experience highlights the powerful, almost contagious nature of different worldviews, especially when they're presented with real conviction. Her profound shift from healer to fellow traveler and her realization that her own curiosity and openness might be a form of abnormality in a society that values conformity. That's a powerful turning point. It's a cautionary tale, perhaps, about the emotional and intellectual demands of truly engaging with radically different perspectives, and how easily one's own sense of normalcy can be destabilized when you're exposed to compelling alternative realities. It makes you wonder, what unique worldviews might you find yourself aligning with if you truly listened without that shield of professional distance?
Some mysteries just defy all medical explanation, don't they? Even baffling renowned experts, like the case of the two-faced patient,
Two-faced, what does that mean?
whose sleeping face was apparently so terrifying it destroyed his marriage. Yet, there was no medical diagnosis. It's a truly chilling account of the inexplicable.
Terrifying how? What happened when he slept?
The unsettling phenomenon was that this patient's face would take on horrifying, indescribable expressions only when he was asleep. While awake, his face was completely normal.
Only asleep. That's bizarre.
Totally. Despite extensive tests involving many esteemed doctors, they found nothing. No abnormal brain waves, no physical symptoms. His underlying psychology wasn't severe enough to account for it. It confounded all medical attempts at explanation.
So physically manifesting something with no apparent cause.
Exactly. And the devastating impact was deeply personal. His wife divorced him because she was simply terrified of his sleeping face. And the patient himself, after seeing video recordings of his sleeping self, was so horrified he agreed to the divorce and moved into a psychiatric ward.
That's tragic. So disturbing he couldn't live a normal life.
Yeah. There's a note about a desperate hypothesis from a young trainee intern. He suggested maybe a face-shaped ulcer covering the entire face, undetected externally, causing pathological reactions only during sleep.
A face-shaped ulcer.
It was dismissed as reading too many comics, but it just highlights the desperate search for any explanation for the inexplicable.
Yeah, the need to rationalize. This raises an important question about the limits of medical science in explaining complex human phenomena, especially those that manifest physically but defy material explanation.
Right.
The two-faced patient represents a profound mystery, a physical manifestation of some unknown internal state, one so disturbing it shattered his family and baffled all clinical understanding. It's a vivid example of the mind-body connection manifesting in this deeply unsettling yet medically elusive way. It really challenges your understanding of physical reality. What if some phenomena are simply beyond our current scientific paradigms? And what does that imply about the nature of our own existence and the limits of our knowledge?
What if madness isn't an illness, but just a label? A label applied by the sane to those who simply embrace their true nature and find profound peace and satisfaction in a reality others deem disturbed.
A redefinition of madness as authenticity.
That's the journey of one remarkable patient. A man who, despite being in an institution, apparently radiates this unexpected sense of calm and contentment.
How did he reach that point? What was his journey?
His personal journey began with an internal struggle. He initially perceived certain thoughts and feelings he had as abnormal. He actively tried to suppress them, even took leave from work to try and fix himself.
Trying to conform to perceived normalcy.
Exactly. However, he eventually realized that this abnormal part was, in fact, his true nature, which had been masked by these fake thoughts of normalcy imposed by society.
An inversion. The normal was fake, the abnormal was real.
That was his conclusion. He understood that the concept of normalcy itself was just a construct added by you madmen, referring to those outside the hospital.
Wow, turning the tables.
He embraced his true self, decided he wasn't going to play with you crazy people anymore, and found profound satisfaction and contentment in his chosen reality within the hospital.
What's truly fascinating here is that profound reframing. Seeing mental illness not as a pathology, but as a journey of self-discovery and liberation.
Yeah, it's a powerful perspective.
This patient's narrative echoes that philosophical idea that sanity is often just a consensus, and those who diverge are simply labeled mad. His journey from suppression to acceptance and finding deep satisfaction in his authentic self, it challenges us to question who defines normalcy and at what cost we conform.
Yeah.
It suggests that true well-being might sometimes involve stepping outside the perceived norms and finding peace in a reality that is uniquely and internally consistent. What normalcies are you conforming to, and what true self might be waiting underneath, perhaps suppressed by the very definitions of sanity that society imposes?
Imagine seeing subtle glimpses of the future. Not through grand prophecies, but through mundane coincidences that later prove to be unsettlingly accurate premonitions.
Or flashes of what's coming.
Exactly. This extraordinary yet fragmented ability becomes a profound, uncontrollable burden for one man. He's described as a civil servant around 30 with a tense, anxious demeanor.
A burden. How so? What does he see?
His experience is a series of seemingly random events that later turn out to be premonitions, like unintentionally buying a cup, then his old one breaks the next day, randomly choosing an artist's work, then the artist dies days later, picking up a seemingly useless item on the street, then needing it unexpectedly, thinking of a friend, then they call within 5 days.
Small, trivial things mostly, but consistently accurate.
Yes. Not dramatic visions, but these small, persistent insights into future trivialities that later become undeniably true. And this precognitive ability seems to have started around the same time he experienced overwhelming information overload.
Interesting connection. Information overload triggering precognition.
Maybe. But the profound frustration is what truly plagues him. He can see these fragments of the future, but he cannot interpret them or act upon them effectively.
So he knows something is... Yeah, absolutely. That raises the question. Is prescience a gift or a curse? This man's experience is a compelling narrative of a mind overwhelmed by information that defies logical processing and useful application.
Knowledge without control.
Exactly. His inability to act on these glimpses or even fully comprehend them until after the fact, it highlights the potential torment of an intuitive ability that outpaces rational understanding. It speaks to that deep human desire for control and the profound anxiety that arises when that control is an illusion, even when you have some knowledge of what's to come. How much information can your mind truly handle before it becomes a burden rather than an advantage?
He's like a modern-day Cassandra.
Cursed with foresight that brings only distress, not advantage. That's a good way to put it.
Beyond individual perceptions, some connections seem to run deeper, woven into the very fabric of existence, maybe. Our next encounter explores this twin resonance described by one woman. Her bond with her sister apparently transcended time and space. She comes from a well-off, educated family, exuding a quiet confidence despite her circumstances.
Twin resonance, like twin telepathy.
Something like that. She describes herself and her sister as mirror twins, identical in appearance, but opposite in key physical traits, like hair whorl or handedness, and also in personality she was quiet. Her sister extroverted.
The classic mirror twin dynamic.
And she speaks of this telepathic bond. She felt a profound connection, able to sense her sister's thoughts, actions, health, emotions without direct communication. She states that for true twins, this isn't mystical. It's just a normal part of their bond, an inherent, almost biological resonance.
So not supernatural, just a deeper connection.
That's how she frames it. But the tragic confirmation of this bond came in the most devastating way. She dreamt of her sister's ex-husband doing something terrible and immediately called the police. It led to the discovery of her sister's murder by the ex-husband. She didn't need anyone to tell her. She just knew.
Oh my God, that's horrific and a chilling confirmation.
Yeah. And her current situation is equally disturbing. After her sister's death, she began experiencing phenomena, seeing her sister appear in mirrors in dreams, sometimes with the ex-husband.
Apparitions.
Yes. And even more unsettling, her husband also witnessed these apparitions, blurring the line between her subjective experience and a shared reality.
Her husband saw them too. Okay, that makes it even stranger. What's fascinating here is that powerful, almost mystical connection between identical twins, transcending normal sensory input, maybe even death.
Yeah.
While telepathy is often met with skepticism, this case provides such a compelling anecdote of a deeply resonant precognitive bond and the shared experience of the ghostly apparitions with her husband that further blurs the line between internal delusion and external reality. It suggests a phenomenon that extends beyond the individual's mind. It forces us to consider the possibility of non-local consciousness, maybe, or shared experiential fields within such unique relationships, and how such profound connections can manifest in both comforting and terrifying ways, even after one twin has passed. How deep can human connection truly go? Are there forms of communication and awareness that science just hasn't grasped yet?
Finally, what if true happiness, true enlightenment, lies not in accumulation or pursuit, but in radical detachment? Detachment from all worldly desires, all emotional ties.
The path of asceticism.
Our next encounter introduces us to a man who embodies this austere yet profoundly simple philosophy. He lives a life of extreme asceticism, even without formally joining a monastic order.
Living like a monk, but independently. What's his core belief?
His extreme asceticism is central. He views all worldly ties and attachments as hindrances. He believes one must cut off worldly ties, erase afflictions, and abandon all troubles, joys, and sorrows to achieve true joy. He was detached from material possessions and emotional entanglements.
Complete non-attachment. What about helping others? Charity.
His critique of conventional charity is subtle but profound. He believes true good deeds shouldn't be done for personal joy or recognition. Doing good should be an inherent, detached part of the path to non-attachment. Doing good just to feel good about yourself, that's still an attachment for him.
Motive matters. Detached compassion.
Exactly. And his definition of pure joy is equally challenging. This elusive state, he believes, is attainable only by abandoning the concepts of life and death, all attachments, and all feelings of sorrow or happiness. It's a state of profound equanimity, untouched by the fluctuations of the world.
Beyond happiness and sorrow entirely.
Yeah. He also offers an interesting perspective on children. He notes that children, being closer to the ground, are often fascinated by worms, stones, puddles, coin patterns, rather than grand structures or the sky that adults point out. He suggests many children's stories are told from an adult perspective, failing to capture a child's true interests.
A nice observation about perspective. This raises an important question. What is the ultimate source of human suffering and happiness? And can true contentment be found in radical detachment?
It's an ancient question.
It is. This individual's austere philosophy, while seemingly extreme, echoes many ancient spiritual traditions that preach transcending worldly concerns as a path to inner peace. His belief that true joy comes from abandoning all attachments offers this powerful counter-narrative to our consumerist, desire-driven society, which so often equates happiness with accumulation.
Right.
It encourages you to critically examine your own sources of happiness and suffering, to consider whether your attachments truly serve your deepest well-being. What would it truly mean to live without attachments? And how would your perception of joy and sorrow transform if you did? Hashtag outro projection.
Wow. What a journey we've been on today. We've really delved into minds that redefine reality, challenge our very sense of self, and question the fundamental nature of the universe. From individuals who see their lives as pre-written novels to four-dimensional visions. From shamans maintaining ancient traditions to these radical reinterpretations of the very fabric of existence, our guides today have truly stretched our understanding of what's possible and what's real.
Yeah, absolutely. If we connect this all to the bigger picture, the overwhelming common thread throughout these incredibly diverse accounts is the plasticity, the power of the human mind, and how profoundly perception shapes our experience of existence.
Perception is key.
It really is.
Yeah.
Whether it's through trauma or intuition or radical philosophy, each individual offers this unique lens, and they urge us to question the solidity of our own normal world. They remind us that our reality is perhaps far more subjective, more multi-layered than we typically acknowledge, and that what we often label as madness might simply be a different, internally consistent way of seeing the world.
So, if what we perceive as normal is just one configuration, just one of an infinite number of possible realities, how much of your own world is truly objective, and how much is a unique construct of your individual mind? And what madness or genius might you discover if you dared to look closer, to listen more intently, or simply dared to be different, acknowledging that, as one wise voice in our deep dive shared, whereas I was blind, now I see.
Keep exploring those questions.
Yeah, keep exploring. You never know what you'll find.